All right, you tuned circuits, listen up. I finally come up with an analogy for this radio. If you ever watch Green Acres, the tractor he had, and the Mr. Haney would be the eBay. Well, Mr. Douglas, I can sell you that gear for $100. Haney, you're crazy. That only costs $1.50. Well, Mr. Douglas, I have overhead and I can't sell you just the gear. I have to sell you the whole mechanism in order to make any profit. So that's what you're up against. Now, what I'm aiming at here is I'm noticing that I cleaned, here's the pencil. I keep saying pencil. It's a pencil eraser. It's a pink pearl. What's the number on it? 400. You pull a string and a little bit, this undoes here. I love how this camera goes backwards. This undoes, and then you take out a piece, and then you can cut it different shapes of the eraser and get in there and clean that. Now this is one of the wafers that I've cleaned, and it's already starting to tarnish again. One of the major problems of this radio is they've been heavily sprayed over the years with chemicals for cleaning the contacts. And the Bakelite doesn't really like the chemical. Now, how I know is they never sprayed the band switch for this radio. So that right away, that just had some oxide, a little bit of oxide. All the other wafer switches in this radio were jet black. See, what was wrong with this radio was the regular caps that you're looking at, I think there's some in the frame there, those were a little leaky. It's the ones that were in the IF can, which is each IF can is both for the, they have a section for the 455 for the AM and 10.7 for the FM. So every can that you open up is I won't say it's a full day's work, but you got to take your time. You don't break the little wires. There's no terminals in there. They crimp the capacitor to the frame of the IF can, and then they use the leads that are sticking out as terminal points. So it's quite the endeavor. I showed you in videos how I solved it using bicycle tubing. But what's happening on these wafer switches is they're starting to turn again, and that's because I cleaned them with the eraser and got them working. And the tone one was real bad. And it's my tone control don't work, so I'll have to use the ohm meter and figure out which one of the contacts isn't working, and then clean that one with the eraser. But this radio is basically the tractor on Green Acres, and there's people that this radio sort of has a cult status. So does the Hallicrafters SX42. Go look at what those go for. Someone just asked me, what do I think is a fair price or a good price to buy one of these Hallicrafters SX42s? See, the problem is, go look at eBay and look at the radio, and go look at the main tuning knob. There should be a little tiny knob in the middle that's the brake, and it's not there. That means the shaft's broken, and that means the guy knows it's broken. He's got something holding those knobs on when he takes the pictures. Very deceptive stuff on these radios. And these dealers are smarter than me. I told you, they can't fix the radio. First thing they do is they test the tubes. They spray everything with the ox. They're hoping to get it out to you, and then it'll all fall apart after you own it. And they get the most money for the ones that actually do something. And then every once in a while, they take the pieces and piece it together, a radio. And that's what this thing is. This was missing. It's missing bolts. You can tell where they've been because they only put some of the bolts back in because they wanted that tuning assembly. Now, I told you there's a video on YouTube of the gear slipping, and it could have been mine, this one here. And I don't know. You can make yourself crazy with this stuff. But I also want to tell you, these wafer switches are really crude. The contacts on them look similar to the more modern ones. But back then, they almost look like they're prototypes. That's how crude they are, and they do because they've been sprayed. and they probably weren't treated. They're maybe copper contacts, and usually they're copper contacts, and then they're plated with silver, and these aren't. These are just straight copper. So you can clean these wafer switches contacts without the cleaner, with an eraser, and a few months later it could go bad again. That's why you have to know how this radio works. But the guys that are selling these radios, they just spray everything, hoping it'll fix it so they can sell it. And then that spray is deadly on these. Now, if go look at the different YouTube videos, and one guy used the word embalmed, that he actually found that the wafer switch, let's see if I can get in the frame. One of the contacts was actually shorting out to the center bar. The bar that makes it turn. It was shorting out, and it was the tube, the first RF tube, which is off for bands 1 and 2. There's something I did learn. I learned it by looking at the Hallicrafters SX42. They actually explain that on bands 1 and 2, you don't want a lot of filterization because it'll make the band too narrow, and the AM broadcast will sound muddy. So that's why they did it. Now, I don't know why Collins shut the gain back on the front tube, the first tube. But this radio was on last night. It got counted. It got a whole bunch of stations. It's just so much more sensitive than the Collins. Now, the Collins might be more selective. You know, there's trade-offs when they build these things. You know, but I recapped these radios, and it's not an easy job. And then I realized all the caps in the IFs, which is both 455 and 10.7. The discriminator, the BFO one has to be redone. You're like, you know, every can I opened up, I knew the caps were going to be bad, and I took each one out, and I showed you that, and I checked them on checker, and they were leaky. And there's only like 1 or 2 people that address that on the internet. So right there, I know there's like 2 people that actually understand how the set works, and they were actually willing to go inside the IF cans and basically hope they didn't break one of those little wires, which I didn't. But I've handled IF cans so many times. You know, when I was in tech schools, the guy would get up to the IF can, and he'd just sit there and stare at it. And back then, you could go buy one. You could buy an IF can. They were square, stupid things that look like they come out of a kitchen radio. They're real junk. And they're the ones that get the silver mica. They're in a lot of the radios from, I'll say, 1956 and on. And they're total junk. And that's why if you watch Shango, he did so many silver mica repairs. Basically, the radios he's doing, I have no interest in them because they're real simple. That's what I was trained on in tech school. It's an all-American 5 radio. It's got 5 tubes. It's AC/DC operation. It's super heterodyne. There was a whole long phrase: 5-tube AC/DC super heterodyne dynamic receiver. And it uses a half-wave rectification. There's no transformer in the radio. The chassis is hot. That's why it comes in a plastic case. Yeah, I trained on those. I don't even want to see another one of those things. And, you know, they go inside and take those capacitors out that have got silver mica. Or they just cut them out and add in another capacitor in parallel with the coil and get it working. But I just want to tell you, this radio is like cult status. In other words, oh, I have a Hallicrafters SX42. And they brag, and I guarantee it doesn't work right, but that's what they do. That's what people do. And the first thing is, on the conferences, just have some deoxide. I spray every control. And then you got the guys that actually work on the radios that'll say, you know, the inside of these really old controls, if you spray them with deox, it eats the carbon track off the inside of the tuning resistor. So you do. The knowledgeable guys, you can't. We knowledgeable guys can't fix what these other guys are telling you to do. That's why I read the conferences only to get. Go check out this guy's website. A good schematic is over here, and a lot of times when you click on it, it's an old link. It's no longer valid. That's why I don't put links on my pictures or on my videos, because if too many people click on it, the person that owns it goes, screw this shit, and he takes it off. Then you got the guy, hey, I clicked on one of your links, it's dead. I used to get that with the CNC all the time. There were people moving in and out of the hobby so fast that I had a hard time keeping the links working. And you know, you're working 3-4 times a week to keep all the links I had operational. And what do you get for it? Nothing. You get someone that's mad at you because one of the links doesn't work. Meanwhile, he's never going to build the machine. That's what I told you. That's what I learned about people. You know, they get the excitement. Oh, I'm going to get a Mustang and I'm going to take it apart and rebuild it. Yeah, I had to sit near a guy. Actually, he's changed the car. It was a Trans Am. Now it's a Mustang, and he's my age, and it ain't ever going to happen. But I had to listen to that for like 4 years. He sat near me that he was going to rebuild the Trans Am. Trans Am's gone. Now it's a Mustang of some sort it's sitting in his backyard, and the neighbors have to look at it. But I'm like, why would you want one of these radios? Now, in my case, I bought it to stay busy, and I never really thought how bad it was going to be. You know, you don't realize there are people out there that play make-believe. And that one BC348, the guy bought a module, a tube module from someone for a lot of money at the back of a magazine. He started putting it in the radio. He cut all the places he's supposed to cut. And then it didn't work. And he put the radio aside. At some point, somebody put it on eBay. I bought it. And I got this mess. And I took that module out. I tracked it down to where it came from. And I realized this guy just terminated wires all over the place. He took the AVC out, automatic volume control. I'm not good with that circuit. And I had to go in and I had to read up on it and find out what. It was a wire that was in one of these bundles. I think it might be in the frame. You have these wiring harnesses here. They're laced together with waxed rope. And he somehow he got in there and cut one of the wires. And I kept following that wire, and it kept stopping. Finally, I cut the ropes, and I peeled the wires apart and looked, and there was a wire. It just came to a dead end. And then some guy, I was saying what I was doing. Some guy goes, yeah, if you would have read the schematic, you would have known that. Yeah, no, the schematic doesn't tell you where the wire has been cut and is hiding on you, which that's why I shut the comments down for a while, because you get real stupid people. If you would have looked at the schematic. Yeah, I did look at the schematic. I knew the wire was supposed to go from point A to point B, but it wasn't going there. And I kept following it and following it. Finally, I said, the only thing it could be, it's broken inside the wiring harness. And sure enough, it was. But the guy meticulously cut wires all over the place because he's following a set of instructions. And then basically the radio really needed to be recapped. So if you got one bad capacitor, you fix that first. Then you put the modification in. But a lot of people modify things that don't work. And I had that at work. We had these mod girls that would mod the circuit boards. And the boss that was on the job ahead of me, he kept giving the circuit boards to the girls to mod. And they were modding, and this is wire wrap sockets. For the entire computer was wire wrap. And I had to take all the mods off in order to get down to the wires that were in the wrong place from when the board was made. He had a whole bunch of this stuff sitting on the shelf. And they said they wanted that in stock. So one day I just bit the bullet. And as I'm working on it, I'm just looking at him. I won't tell you his name, but he was a real sneaky little son of a bitch. Actually, he wasn't little. He was tall and thin. But yeah. Just keep sending it to the mod girls to have it updated. Meanwhile, it doesn't work. It never worked. We bought a bunch of these circuit boards from another district, and we modified the wire wraps over it. Oh, and the other thing too is sometimes the girl would put the board upside down in front of her and count all the ICs wrong and put the complete mod system in the wrong place. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen a wire wrap sockets. A complete computer wire wrapped with that tool, with that blue wire. We used to call it mod wire, but it's wire wrap wire. But this radio Keeps me challenged. But the problem is, when that gear was broken, I told you there is a video. The person has the same problem, or that's my radio. Okay, so anyway, I kept thinking about that, thinking about it. Finally, I just like, and I could do that gear even better. Uh, First of all, you got to put sandpaper or emery paper in the crack, because when it broke, it stretched. Go in there, you clean between it, you put it in a vise, and you put that high up above the vise, where you're going to solder it. You close the vise in, and you mic it up between the teeth to make sure it's closed the right amount. And then you pre-tin all the parts, and you lay in a piece of brass. Now, what I did was I filed the widthwise of the gear a groove in between the two teeth. What it really should have done was took a triangular bit Dremel, and just in the middle where the other gear rides, just clean that trough out between the two gears, and that would leave the splint, more of the splint in there, to prevent the gear from cracking. There's so much to this stuff. I have a lot of skills because I fixed clocks, I fixed VCRs, I fixed TV decoders that people would get. It was nonstop. I fixed a lot of things without schematics. But when you have a broken gear, you got it in your hand, and you go on the internet every day for so many hours, and you try to find a gear that's close to it. But the gear is American standard teeth, and all the gears you can buy now are all metric. So at some point, I'm holding it, and I'm like, well, all right, I'll make the guy an offer. I go in to check what the offer is, and then my Social Security come in, and now I have enough. I go in to make an offer, and the guy raised it up, and I start figuring it out. It would be $100-something, like $120 with shipping and handling, just to hope that gear isn't broken the same way the one I have is. And that's why I said, no, not doing it. But this radio is a real hoot. And unless you've fixed 100 radios in your lifetime, don't buy one of these. You're fooling yourself. You're delusional. I think that's it. Oh, I don't know about that. That's it.